Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wigwam Gaming. Today we're going to talk about a little game called Night in the Woods. I recently finished playing Night in the Woods on my Let's Play channel with a good friend of mine. We jumped into this game knowing little to nothing about the actual game except that it was narrative driven and it was getting really good reviews at the time. I was certainly unprepared for the gripping and moving story that Night in the Woods had in store for us. It has been over a month since I have finished the game and I am still completely obsessed with it. This video is not a review as I would typically do. I can give you the quick review right now. Night in the Woods is excellent. It's one of my favorite games of the year easily, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorite indie games of all time. Now instead I want to talk about how flawlessly Night in the Woods has created a captivating adventure out of a story-driven game with minimalistic game mechanics. How it creates something so endearing out of just relatable characters in a small, nowhere country town. And that's actually the first step into Night in the Woods' success. The game features a cast of characters that are a mixture of outcasts and rejects that are extremely relatable, in-depth, and just feel like real people. Real animal people. The game follows May Borowski, a 20-year-old college dropout who has just returned home to the failing mining town of Possum Springs. May's sole goal in life seems to be endlessly and aimlessly wandering through life while committing petty crimes, creating general chaos, and hanging out with friends. Her friends are a motley crew of societal rejects. You've got Bea, a chain-smoking, perpetually downtrodden girl who, unlike May, is extremely hard-working. She spends most of her days hoping to run her family's hardware store. Bea and May's relationship starts off quite strained, as we learn they used to be close childhood friends but seemingly drifted apart towards the end of their high school careers. There's also Angus, the soft-spoken, socially introverted, straight-edge member of the group and boyfriend to the greatest ever character, Greg. Seriously, I do not think this game would be half of what it was if it was not for the magic of cups on his ears Greg. When May left for college, Greg was her best friend and always the partner in crime. Now that May's back, he's pretty much the same, but now he has a job and a steady relationship with Angus. Angus is there to help provide a voice of reason and round out the cast, while Bea and Greg often acts as the devil and angel sitting on May's shoulder. Bea will help you pull May's time towards doing productive things like helping the town or helping out at the shop, work, responsible adult things, and meanwhile most of Greg's category can be devolved down into crimes. Greg's adventures can range from breaking light bulbs, stealing car batteries, building grocery store robots into abominations, and basically anything that you could fit under the category of crimes. The relationship that May has with these characters are all deeply developed and, more importantly, realistic. With Bea, we have two characters that have grown apart and given up on their friendship, but now, due to a change of circumstances, they are thrust together again. We all have friends who we've grown apart from over the years, who we accepted are no longer part of our lives. As time passes, it creates a gap that's difficult to traverse, especially when you're no longer there for that person in hard times. And both Bea and May have been through some incredibly difficult times since they last spoke to each other. This is handled so expertly by the game. It's not something that is just magically washed away. Bea and May are forced to rebuild their friendship by building new memories, by confronting their broken relationship. There's arguments, there's confrontation. You go through all of this and by the end of it, you feel like you've become a part of the relationship as well. Then there's the relationship with Greg, the old and immature friend. May desperately wants Greg to be how he was when she left. She feels that Greg is a tie to her old life. As long as lovable and mischievous Greg is around, her whole high school life feels as if it's still within reach in a town that after only 2 years has started to feel alien and foreign to her. And while Greg is always more than willing to feed into this quite frankly negative behavior, it ends up causing a rift in his relationship with Angus. Angus, yet another very realistic relationship that most of us will face. The significant other of your best friend who you have to get along with. And don't get me wrong, Angus is just as amazing as every other character in Night in the Woods, but his relationship with May is that he opposes the past that May wants to live in by pulling Greg towards a brighter future that he could never have had alone. Just as Greg is bad for May, May is bad for Greg, and the way these characters' relationships unfold and grow is basically through just normal, everyday events. Now yes, there is a fantastic underlying plot in Night in the Woods that involves cults and murder and dismembered arms, but we'll get to that in a second, because the real magic in this game is the day-to-day events. Night in the Woods kind of takes place like this. You wake up in the morning, you can check your computer and your social media messages, and then you go out and hit the town. You get to pick who you want to hang out with, who you want to talk to, and who you want to interact with that day. You run into a few key moments that involve the whole group, but on average, it's really your choice how you spend your time. The game even gives you alternate endings depending on who you hang out with the most. This multi-layered storytelling is both extremely gripping and grounded in reality. I found it to be completely brilliant the way that the relatable character development takes place in a more grounded and centered series of events. While the game still features that exciting background story to keep you playing, it makes the character growth exponentially more relatable. Things happen in places and ways that feel real. You total all this up and you get one of the most gripping narratives I've played in years. But what about the actual gameplay itself? Well, it's another touch of perfection. This game is technically a platformer, although there are very few moments you would ever be forced to actually platform. Because of this, you think that the platforming could essentially just be, well, crap, because it's not super essential to the game. But it's not. It is superbly well polished like every other aspect of this game. Just because it's not something that takes up most of your time doesn't mean that it doesn't have an insane amount of polish onto it. And that same concept applies to all the gameplay mechanics. You're gonna come across a huge variety of mechanics while going on your adventures. I mean, like a ton of different things you'll be doing mixed in with your puzzle solving and adventuring. I did not have a complaint about a single one of these. They were all well polished, well done, and most importantly of all, entertaining. No part of this game, big or small, felt like it was neglected by the developer. It's a game that has been deeply and well polished, all the way down to the playable roguelite found on May's computer. Yes, there is actually a video game within this game that is so good I would have bought it separately if it was available separately. So, in conclusion, Night in the Woods does something I thought was impossible. It creates a gripping and rewarding experience that is almost entirely driven by narrative. It's the attention to every detail, the unique and yet believable story and reality-grounded characters that create what has quickly become one of my favorite games. By creating a story that is grounded in reality, with character and relationships that we can relate to, Night in the Woods creates a world that is hard not to get swept away in. The highly polished game mechanics and large variety of things to do keep you playing. Don't judge this game based on your previous experience with story-driven games. Just do yourself a favor and give it a shot. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like down below, and if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing for more videos. I make video game reviews, TV reviews, and whatever the hell else I feel like doing. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and I love your beautiful faces. Bye-bye.